Welcome to the Vision and Purpose podcast, where we dive deep into the lives of incredible people who have made a mark on the world. Join us as we explore the journeys, stories, and passions of individuals who have achieved extraordinary feats, shattered barriers, and inspired us all. And now your host, Dr. Sharon H. Porter. Hello, and welcome to Vision and Purpose Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sharon H. Porter, Editor-in-Chief of Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine. I am super excited to welcome my guest, educator, author, entrepreneur, publisher, Miss Nury Castillo Crawford. Welcome to the show, Nury.
Hey, Sharon, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm sitting here just thinking, I can't believe that we haven't sat down before and had this conversation. We've known each other for several years through social media in the educational space. I met you, I think, as an assistant principal, and you have gone on to do great things over these years. So I'm just so excited to have this opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been following you. You're a leader, also a champion for children, and obviously an entrepreneur. And so I think busy people attract other busy people.
Absolutely.
Connected.
Absolutely. You know, I would love for you to just take the time to just share a little bit about your background for our audience.
Yeah, sure. So I could start in the mountains of Peru, but I am originally from Peru, South America. I emigrated to this country when I was about 11 years old with my family, my father, my mother, my younger sister, and my baby brother, who was 3 months old. And yeah, so because of political reasons, etc., my father decided to relocate all of us to an unknown land, with no acquisition to the language. And soon they would find out that the educational system, it too is different. So all of those components made the journey here a bit challenging. But my parents, I believe, have definitely set the tone for me and my siblings, hardworking, problem solvers, and definitely just humble, with lots of dreams, and lots of aspirations, not only for themselves, but I think more than anything for myself and my siblings. They wanted the best for us. And so they made huge sacrifices and left everything they had, little and big, and kind of took a risk to see if life would offer us something more than our home country could.
Wow, that's incredible. And what made you get into the educational space?
Yeah, so really, I think my entire life, I wanted to be a teacher and an educator. Even when I lived in Peru, our house, in the very back of it, there were hills, these small mountains, and there were rocks. And I've been there again as an adult, and the rock that I'm referring to is not that big, but in my mind, it was huge. And after school, I would stand on it, and all of the neighborhood kids would come around and they wanted to play. But I wouldn't let them get on the rock unless everybody just voted that I would be the teacher, which is a little wrong. That's not nice to make people vote for you. So yeah. I just always wanted to be an educator and would help the little kids with their homework. And that's all I've ever wanted to do, was to be a teacher. And, as life would have it, my trajectory took me, all the way up to be an executive director. But in real life, I just wanted to be a teacher. And I think being a teacher is one of the most honorable things that you can be, being able to make such a huge impact on the lives of children. And so for me, it was definitely an honor to have been a teacher. I did elementary school as a teacher, and as a leader, I've been a leader at all three levels: elementary, middle, and high school.
Wow. And I tell you today, and especially post COVID, we are now about 3, almost 4 years post COVID now, which seems amazing because it seems like we were
Yes.
just in it. But we are in the educational arena still seeing the effects of COVID.
Mm.
And that's across the board, across the nation. We're seeing that. Just from your expertise and just from the spaces where you've been, what has been most challenging for educators these last 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest challenges has definitely been engagement with all stakeholders,
Mhm.
whether we're talking about the children themselves in the classrooms, in the learning spaces, but also with the families and the communities. I think a, a lot of a lot of the feedback or the insight that we're gathering has to do with mental health wellness, and the stressors and different triggers that cause families and children alike to suffer from anxiety
Mhm.
and getting overwhelmed so quickly. Whereas before you would think, like it's just not that big a deal, but now we are learning and seeing that those things are a big deal
Yes.
to the children and to the families as well. I mean, we hear that, I think, from all the stakeholders. So I think like that definitely is one
Hmm.
of the biggest challenges. But I also feel like because COVID itself got so politicized, that it carried on to our
Mm,
world, because as we know, our schools are a reflection of our communities.
absolutely.
And so when that got politicized, then I feel like everything else now that we are doing gets politicized, because during COVID, we were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe teachers deal with this every day. I have 2 kids and they have 30 kids, and, like, teachers, educators were definitely, being praised. And I feel like the table got flipped over
Yeah.
and, turned upside down and everything else. And now, people, not everybody, I'm sure, but a lot of attention has been given to those who perhaps are not trusting in the decisions that we're
Hmm.
making or that we want to include in
Yeah.
our daily teaching and learning spaces. So I think, like, relationship wise, there's definitely been a bigger barrier, and a larger gap has been
Hmm.
created as a
Yeah,
society.
definitely. Definitely. Now you have, especially with the books that you write and publish, you make sure that your books have representation and the focus on being bilingual, I think, is amazing. And so I want you to talk a little bit about that because from your children's book and you've gone on to write other books, and I do want you to share, especially your most recent one. Just really excited about that. But you are an advocate for multilingual representation in literacy. And I love that. So, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll be honest with you. That wasn't my dream ever, to be an author. I mean, I love books, and I think through literacy, I was able to acquire the English language faster and increase my vocabulary, because my dad, to this day, is very strict, and I couldn't do after school programs, et cetera, but I could go to the library. And it didn't cost money. And we were a little bit short on cash. So it didn't cost money. And my dad approved of books. So I would spend a lot of time at the library because it was free and I could read all the books I wanted. And so I've always been a book lover, but I never thought about writing a book until about 2016 or so, when a candidate was running for president and started trying to put all Latino, Hispanic people in a box, in a derogatory, right, image. And I really was looking dumbfounded, like, who is he talking about? Like, he can't be talking about my family, my father, my mother, my cousins, my aunties, hardworking, humble, loving, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, like, to me, everything that I'd ever wanted to do was just to make all of them proud of me, because I knew all of the sacrifices they made for me and how much they loved me, how much they believed in me, how much they counted on me, to do better, and to basically, I knew that they left everything that they had, and I wasn't going to let them down. Like I wasn't, and I know that's a lot of pressure for kids, some people might say, but I took it as an honor, because I feel like everybody in a family has a role. And my role was to make sure that myself and my siblings lived up to my parents' dreams. I mean, and some, people take it different ways, but that was an honor for me. And so basically, I wrote my first children's book, 3,585 Miles to Be an American Girl, which is the exact miles from Lima, Peru, to where we moved here in the US, because I thought, even if not one single copy gets sold, I wanted my one day, if I have grandkids or great grandkids, or even long after I'm gone, for them to know the real story, not a made up story, not a story that somebody just decided to say, even they probably don't even know Latino people, whatever. Like, I was like, how dare someone tell my story of an immigrant? How dare you try to categorize my family into something that we're not? And so I thought, you know what? If nobody buys the book, that's fine. At least I will know that it's there, and my kids, my grandkids, etc., they will know the real story of our immigration journey to this country. And I definitely wanted to make it bilingual. And I'm glad I did, because it started a whole new trajectory. And I wanted to make sure that the characters were a true representation. And in the book, I write, how proud I am to be a girl with brown skin and black hair. And so the story is about a little immigrant girl and her challenges coming to a new space and being scared, and having the love of her mom and the love of her dad, etc. So a lot of those variables can be transferred into any child's world. Children go into, either you're going to a new school, going to a new class every year, etc. And so children can relate being scared, being in a new space. They can also relate to having the love of someone they love being supportive to them, and understanding that you should be proud of who you are and your own traditions and your own skin and your own hair, etc. So definitely a lot of seeds that are planted for teachers or even parents to start those conversations about, just loving yourself, because you can't love anybody else until you learn how to love yourself. And so for me, that's important. And it is, I decided to write that first book, and it was very well, amazingly, I was very pleased that it was welcomed. And I've been able to go across the country to different schools and organizations and universities to talk about the story. And that propelled me to write the second book about Sophia and Vivi, which is the second phase, but in the second book, it's more of a compare and contrast. Like in Peru, my sister and I went to different schools, but in here in the US, we go to the same school. So I talk a lot about like there versus, like a versus type thing. But then I also talk about the things that are the same. Like my family still loves me, and I'm still a big sister, and those things are still the same. Like, so talked about those. And so it's called the Sophia series. So the first two books came out. And then later this year, towards the fall, the third and final book of the Sophia series, which will focus on my little brother who came here when he was 3 months old,
Wow.
will be the final book in that series. And his journey is very different, because he didn't grow up. He didn't remember Peru.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, he got a chance to pretend he didn't know Spanish when he didn't want to do chores and stuff. So,
Now, did you
you
say
know,
that? And I love that. And that really, speaks to other things because in my current elementary school where I'm the principal, of course, our students with second languages are growing, of course, right? And so you do have individuals who are not pretending, but who do not know their native
Yeah,
language. And
yeah,
so that's a concern. And we try to make sure, and that's the one thing that I love with my ELD teachers this year, who one is fluent in Spanish, and it makes all the difference to the families as well as the students. And
mhm,
although we have other students that speak other languages other than Spanish, but the majority of our ELD
yeah,
students are Hispanic.
yeah.
And so when you mentioned that he can pretend that he doesn't know, I was really alarmed by the number of students who are born here or came very young and who don't know the language for whatever reason.
And I would venture to say from personal experience that they probably do know some, but everyone, you, myself, everyone just wants to feel accepted.
Okay.
People want to feel like they belong. And as adults, the difference is that as adults, we are able to process. And because I love myself, I'm proud of the gifts that I have.
Yes.
With a child whose frontal lobe is not fully developed and they're still trying to find their space in this world, they're not as secure of their gifts and they see differences as
Mhm.
deficits.
Okay.
So, as educators, it is our duty to fill in those gaps and to help them feel empowered. And in one of the chapters in the book that we were just talking about
Mhm.
together, that I just released, We Thrive, it on chapter 9, I think it is. It's a whole chapter. Nope, I lied. It's chapter 8. It's titled Cultivating Empathy and Gratitude. And basically it talks about well, I'm sorry, yes, in this chapter, it definitely talks about different things that leaders can do to help not only the staff, but themselves as well, nurture their school community with empathy. And so it talks about, and it gives some strategies like incorporating cultural competency training, having diverse representation, like you just said, ensuring that multilingual communication is available, um, having incorporating cultural awareness programs, having parental ambassadors. Of course, there's more details. I'm just reading
Mhm.
like the subheadlines. Cultural sensitivity in curriculum, parental workshops, cultural exchanges, inviting parents for open dialogues, and the list goes on. There's
Mhm.
like 14 different strategies that leaders can have, but I think like that part is important because as you empower your school community, your teachers, etc., your staff,
Yes.
then they learn what kind of influence and what kind of impact they have with the children.
Yes.
And I think that's important because schools are busy places and we get caught up on everyday things. And so it's so important, and not just for Latino kids, right? And you and I both know that. It's important for even children who are American and have different cultures because
Yes.
in the South, our Black boys and girls, our Black families
Mhm.
are rich in Southern culture. And so, the Black community has different cultural nuances that perhaps white communities have no clue about
Yes.
or don't know about or they don't follow, etc. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to incorporate these things for a specific community. I think even though the book is focused on the Latino community,
Mhm.
the information, the data, the research behind community and parental engagement can be applicable to all communities.
Absolutely.
So I think that that part is very important because empathy is important and we can't take for granted that people know. I mean, I know, I'm speaking to the choir, but like sometimes people are amazed that sometimes like I thought everybody knew that. you can't be amazed. People don't know some things. And since we know that the majority of our teachers, even to this day, continue to be middle class white females, and it doesn't mean they can't find empathy, right? But we
That's
have to
right.
help them. We have to help them see the reality that our children are living. So I think those kind of things are very important, and remembering that we need to have empathy with them as well as they learn and as they, because at the end of the day, they have impact on our children, on all of our children. So we have to empower them. We have to have patience with them, and help all of our teachers get on the same page and have the same language in terms of how do we help and transfer this empowerment and this pride of being
Yes,
who you are to all of our children, whether they're Latino, Black, Asian, red hair, it doesn't matter. Like all of our
absolutely.
kids need to be feel empowered and understand that feeling seen, heard, and respected is a norm. It's not like a blessing from anyone. It's something that everyone should have access to. Everybody should feel seen, heard, and respected. And when you don't, then we help our children articulate that with their words on how to start that conversation, whether it's with another peer or with an adult. But I feel like all of that sometimes we take for granted as leaders or as educators, but we have to actually take the time to teach our kids and our families on how to do that and advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. I mentioned this before about representation matters because I truly, like with everything in me, believe that. And I go back to even me as an elementary student, looking at my fourth grade teacher and deciding at that point that I wanted to be a teacher and a fourth grade teacher nonetheless, because
Mm,
of the amazingness that I saw, right? But my whole K through 12 experience, I never had a Black principal. And
mm,
so honestly, it just never crossed my mind to become a principal, right? I never desired what I saw. And so this is like recent that I'm just thinking of all of this.
yes.
Um, and it wasn't until I relocated to the Washington, D.C. area, in a county specifically where there was an influx of African Americans doing everything, my eyes were open. I mean, I'm talking as an adult at this point. I had graduated from college, had taught a few years. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to be in like my mid 20s when I came to this space and was
Mm,
looking around like, oh my goodness. So
yeah,
I take that because exposure is everything.
yeah, I
And
agree.
now that there is a big push, even specifically in my school district now, to make sure that we have our Latino population shown and represented, not just as teachers, but as administrators,
Mm-hmm.
because we that's our population that we're serving now.
Well, I
And
mean, I
it
think
should
throughout
be,
the country, that's what we're
yes, throughout the
seeing.
country. Exactly. So I'm just so filled when I make it known that we have to have our students exposed to all these types of careers, things to
Mm-hmm.
let them know that truly it is wide open for them, that
Yes.
they literally can be whatever they desire to be. And so I just think that, and that's why I don't take career day lightly. And I actually wanted to bring that throughout the year, not just save it for one day, right? So that they
Mm-hmm.
can see just, even with I do college Mondays every week. So we have college Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, everybody's not going to college, but at least they're exposed to it so that they know it's an option.
I was gonna say the options are good. At least
Yes,
you know, like you're not, well, I have to do this because there's no other option. No, it's like
exactly.
you could be an electrician because that's what you choose to be, but you could have
Yes,
done something else too
you
because
could
that's
have
what you're doing.
exactly. And it just as an adult, because that was really what was before me. I
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, I really like I didn't know personally any entrepreneurs, at least that was I take that back. My dad, and I get my entrepreneur spirit from him. He was a worker, but he was just like him, I'll say.
Yes,
always, trying this, this wanting to do this and this, but beyond that, it wasn't in my purview. I didn't, you know
yes,
what I mean? And so
yeah,
it wasn't again until I'm almost mid 40s that I realized, hey, I can be an entrepreneur. I
right.
mean, mid 40s, Nuri, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
No, I
So,
know. I
so
think
I,
because back in the day, I think we got programmed to having a safe job,
yes,
like
that's
having an
exactly
income,
it.
and then we're good to go. But
That's
then we're
it.
like, hey, I can do more than
You
just have an
can do
income.
more.
Right.
And that's my charge to my students that I serve
Yeah.
each and every day. I'm talking from pre-K to fifth grade, that you literally, the options are endless. Yes, college is an option, but hey, you might be good in this, you might be good in that. You know what I mean? So just explore all of that. And
Yes.
so I'm glad to see that we are making a push for our Latina population, to not only be in classrooms, but now to lead schools, to be
Yes.
in central office, because that's important. They need
Yeah.
to see themselves in everything that we do in this K-12 space. And I just believe that.
Yeah, I agree. I think all children deserve to be represented, and I feel like it takes all of us to ensure that not just the children that look like me
Right.
representation. I want all of the children to have representation. I love
Absolutely.
all of the children, and I, sometimes I think people misunderstand that, because if you advocate for your own community, then people misinterpret that. And
Yes.
I try to
Yes.
help them gently understand, like, that's not what I'm
Yes.
saying. I want all the children to be represented, and I love all of the children. But that it has to include my community too. Like, you can't
Absolutely.
expect me to love everyone and then just let my community fall to the wayside. That's a little
Right.
weird. That's a little odd that you
Right.
think that. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, so I feel like it's important across the nation. Our Latino population has boomed, and one of the very first page in the book says almost 1 in 5 Americans, that's 62.6 million, are Hispanic, according to the latest 2020 census numbers. That's a
Wow.
23% increase from 2010.
Wow.
And that quote was taken from NBC News from September the 15, 2022.
Wow.
So the numbers are there. And again, and I feel like the numbers have been increasing and we've seen this coming. It's not like we didn't know this was
Right.
been, we've
Absolutely.
been talking about it, but until it becomes a priority. And one of the things that I do know is that if we address the inequities or the lack of support we give to the community or communities that need it the most, then everybody else will also benefit. If we
Yes.
provide the structure and the resources for children, period, that perhaps we haven't prioritized, then the rest of the children will also benefit because we will have those resources in place. And we don't usually say, we don't normally like go around picking just based on ethnicity and race. We
Right.
go by data. And so,
That's right.
right. And so all children that are at that level will, if we're talking about literacy, all the children that are below the literacy rate, if we incorporate systems and structures and resources for the kids for us to support them in learning how to read, et cetera, and become, proficient, then all of the children who fall in that group will receive these resources. And
Yes.
therefore it will be equitable because every child will get what they need to be successful.
Yeah. So what was the motivation for your latest book? What made you, what was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, so the title is Together We Thrive, Engage, Involve, Empower. And for me, it really has been, so when I was a director for Gwinnett County Public Schools, and I launched the Hispanic Mentoring Program, one of the things that had been historically a challenge, because it's not a school, right? It's a district level thing, and the district is huge. Is like, how do I connect with families that don't know me, right? Because they're like, I don't know you. You're at the district. You're not at my child's school. What do you want? Like, who are you, lady? So I'm like, how do I engage them? And so I had to start thinking outside the box. and implementing different ways to communicate. So if we had an event, then we would have yard signs made and we would put them outside the schools. We would videotape a short message so the principals could play it on their weekly morning announcements, because this was middle school. We created WhatsApp groups and we organized them by school on the WhatsApp. So we had like all these groups. And then we also created, we sent postcards. So we created these fun postcards and we would mail them out once a month, give them a tip and then tell them about an event, etc. And then we created a Facebook group. Initially, the Facebook group was just a small little number of people. Then we decided to have the QR code at events and have parents sign up and connect with us on Facebook. And as we started that, we only posted about the events because that was just another way to communicate. But slowly but surely, it turned into a Facebook group where now I do a weekly parent tip where I share, I would say, a minimum of 5 scholarship opportunities a week, and just different things. And it was literally just for Gwinnett at first, Georgia, when we started in 2019. And now we have started getting people from around the country. So now we have different parents, because now it's not specific to Gwinnett. Now we have parent tips. We have national events from the National Hispanic Heritage Foundation. We share internship opportunities. We share scholarships. We just share lots of different things on there that can be applicable, and it could pertain to anywhere in the country. And when it is specific, like today, I think I posted something about I think it's an internship opportunity in Washington, D.C. And I'll put like the city or whatever, or the state or whatever it is at the very top. So yeah, we have like about 1,000 people on there now.
Wow, I absolutely love that. Oh my goodness. I love it. I tell you. And so where can people buy this book? Where can they connect with you? How can
Yeah.
they join the Facebook group if they need to? Please just share all of the contact information that you have.
Yeah. So this book is called Together We Thrive, Engage, Involve, Empower, and it can be found on Amazon and on the publishing page, 1010 Publishing. So that's 1010 Publishing. Even the Harvard bookstore has it. So different bookstores have it as well. Books A Million, Target, Walmart, you can go anywhere and type in the title. My name is Nury Castillo Crawford. So if you type in the title or half the title and my name, it normally pops up. And parents, now the Facebook group page is all in Spanish. I will say that. And it's called Latino Youth and Parent Group. So it's Latino Youth and the and sign parent group. But people can also connect with me on just social media under my complete name. And if people have questions, which a lot of people do, they send me inbox messages and I try to assist any way that I can and connect. And the nice thing is that, a lot of us educators do know each other. So if I don't know an answer, I usually ask somebody else and they know it, and we can still help families and parents and even educators find solutions. And I think together we're definitely stronger. So I'm all about collaboration.
I love it. I tell you, I thank you so much for just taking the time out today and sharing all of your expertise, sharing about your books, just everything. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And guys, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Vision and Purpose. This is where we explore the depths of our guest's vision and purpose. Remember that your vision is the compass that guides you through life, and your purpose is the fuel that propels it. Keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep pursuing your purpose. Every step you take brings you closer to the fulfillment of that purpose. I am your host, Dr. Sharon H. Porter, and until next time, live life with vision and purpose. Thank you for joining another episode of Vision and Purpose Podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe. Please join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.